Alright, so what are we looking at here? Well, together we are looking at a watch that I'm going to be working on. Now, what you're looking at is a disassembled watch, namely this is my grandfather's watch, and you can also see a watch movement right here. So this is an automatic watch movement going into a formerly quartz watch. So we are going to take a look at this. First things first, put gloves on. I do not have finger cuts, but we will work with gloves instead. The idea is that we do not want the oils from my fingers, the oils from my hands, my skin generally, getting in contact with the movement. It has to have very delicate, very specialized oils on it. This movement comes pre-oiled. So this movement here is an ETA 2824-2, a Swiss movement. I decided that because this is a gold framed watch, that I should go with a, well, let's get that in focus, a gold movement. So that's what I've gone for. So why have I decided to work on this? Well, it was my grandfather's watch, who has sadly passed away. However, this is a watch that was gifted to me, that Granddad would have wanted me to have, my grandfather would have wanted me to have, and it is a, it's essentially been given to me as a family heirloom, if you will. The reason why I've decided to adapt it and bring it up to a restoration spec is because when I got it, it was actually damaged. The movement was damaged. I had a decision at that point to make. What do I do? Do I just go and get another Miyota 2115 movement and put it into the back of this? Would have been cheap enough. But I decided that I'm going to give this the love and respect that I think my granddad deserves. So I decided that I'm actually going to elevate this watch and give it something really, really special. So that's what we have today. That's what we're going to look at. First things first, we are going to flip the movement over, and I'm actually going to take the rotor off. There's a reason for that, and I'll go through that as I'm working on it. But essentially, so we just get a really small little guy here. It's really gentle pressure that you apply. That should be loose enough. And I am not seeing my tweezers here, so I'm going to go and take a look for them. So you might have to bear with me. I'm just going to go and find those tweezers. So excuse my short absence there. We are going to take this off very carefully. Just going to place that on a little tray I have out of shot there. And the reason I am doing this, which I promised to give you, is that I need to put this eventually into a watch movement holder. If the pressure of being in the watch movement holder is put on that rotor, it can damage it. Everything in a watch movement is incredibly delicate. Now, there came some difficulties with this, which I'll go through. One of them is to do with the dial that was originally on the watch, so I've had to alter to a new dial. And I will show you what I have to work with in just a second here. But while we are talking about that, there's another thing I forgot, which of course, so for some reason when I received this watch movement, it had the pinion for the hour hand separated into a different bag. So I'm not sure if this will come across well or if at all on the screen, but essentially there's not one central pinion on the watch movement. To the uninitiated it may seem like, so pinion being a central rotating pin or holding device that rotates mechanically, you may think that all hands are just on one. Just going to nudge that on with my tweezers there. There we go. So that's the hour hand pinion on there. Now what I have to do is I now have to prepare my dial. Oh, and I promised to talk to you about the difficulties with the original dial. The original dial had dial feet set for a small quartz movement, so quartz being battery powered, and they're a lot smaller than an automatic movement. That means, oh, this is a lovely dial. That means that that dial would not work with a larger automatic movement. I've checked the variances, the measurements, and I do have enough clearance to put a automatic in here. It has to be something really thin, however, like an ETA 2824-2. So I couldn't use the original dial. There were thoughts about using epoxy to fix it to it, but the trouble is it was a domed dial, so that means it would have sat flat on the what we call the calendar wheel, which is this wheel that shows the date, or the date wheel as some people call it. Both are correct. So it would have actually squashed that, which over time that would have caused damage to the various drivetrains inside an ETA 2824-2. So now I just have to figure out where the dial feet sit. Okay, that's fairly easy. And I just have to eyeball this. So I'm just going to place a small amount of pressure just to begin to get that ready on there. So that is mostly affixed now, I think, unless I've done that wrong. No, I can see the dial feet, that's great. And that seems to be in the correct place. Fantastic. So, I'm now going to get my dial holder ready. Movement holder, sorry. And while I'm just holding this here in the air, I'm just going to, there should be a nice little squeeze or crack at some point. So in the right place, yep. So there's a little tiny notch. I'm not sure if that comes across on the screen, but I'll get this more lined up in a second. Lined up in the shot that you're seeing, I should mention. Alright, so now I'm in my movement holder. So, the choice had to be made to get a new dial, as I was talking about before, and the reason I had to make that choice is because of the difference from a quartz to an automatic movement. Quartz being the battery power that uses a small little tiny amount of quartz crystal, hence the name, which acts as a regulator for the electromagnetic pulse coming through it from the battery, which gives it that high degree of accuracy. I do greatly prefer mechanical. It keeps skilled watchmakers, of which I'm very much not one. I'm just a guy who can screw about with doing some repairs. But I also had to get I had to make a very specific choice, because your dial has to be sized to both your movement and your case size. I've got a very specific case size here, 42mm, which is a hard one to find, and for the watch movement. So I found a website in the United States called Allard-Will, there's some watchmaker in the family, I can't remember the name, but the guy who currently runs it is, I guess, grandchild or great-grandchild or great-great-grandchild of the original Allard-Will, who comes from the German watchmaking scene originally, way back in the day. But we are talking about a guy who has very specific stuff that he's had manufactured, and he happened to have exactly the right one I was looking for. I had to then make a choice of which one do I want. So this changes slightly. The original dial, if I did have an image and have put it on screen, was gold to match this, originally from the British quartz manufacturer Accurist. I had to get something that kind of looked dress watchy, but to me it also kind of looks a bit sports watchy, which I think is nice as well. Had to get new hands too, and I wanted to match I'm not sure how well that's going to show up on screen, wanted to match the gold look of the case, and luckily Allard-Will also sold those. So What do I have to do now? I'm just going to handle this by hand just to get the stem out to the third position. So, the thing about an automatic watch movement with a date complication, to set hands to it, you have to make the date jump, which I've just done there. Then you have to set your hands to the 12 o'clock position now that you're on midnight or the new date. And this is where things get finicky and where I might begin to look at using loops. Which one did I use for the hour? Is that the correct size? It's too big. That one. So I chose these sword, arguably sword/Dauphine style hands. Looks a little big actually, but I was promised this is the right size for the ETA. So this is a hand setting tool. I'm just applying a little bit of pressure. And you just kind of rock it rather than pushing straight down. Looks like it's almost on there. Let's check that. So you look across it and make sure it's nice and not too much up, which it is right now. Right, so that's that one on. You leave it at the midnight position. And then what we're going to do is we're then going to work on the minute hand, which is all not too finicky right now. But I'll show you, we have the, so I'm going to go down to this hand setting tool. We have the second hand coming, which is the absolute worst. These ones I'm kind of doing by eye. It's a very nice style. I didn't realise it was porcelain. It didn't cost that much, so they've given me porcelain for a fairly good price. So again, we're just going to kind of gently, we are going to try and push down. But we're just going to apply some gentle rocking as well as a downward force. No, that one I can't see too well by eye. So let's give this a closer inspection with some loops. Yeah, I've still got some clearance to go. Almost there. Almost looks flat. There we go. I wish I could show you what I'm seeing through the loops. It looks fantastic. So the second hand's my enemy. So there's not much more to this after I've got the hands on. Remember, I do have the rotor off, so that it might only take a little bit before it gives up. Oh, fuck. I hit the second hand. Yeah, so kind of rose gold, a little bit different to the yellow gold tone of the case. but I do like these hands. With an ETA 2824-2, the size, hand size setting it's got, you can't be too picky because most of the hands are available for the more widely released quartz and automatic movements from Yota and Seiko. So this one I very much have to do with the loops. Yep, this is what happened to me last time. Okay. It's not as close as damn it, but give it a go. So the idea is that there's one pinion that runs through all of the other pinions, which is the second hand one, which is, of course, the tiniest one. Then the second largest that goes underneath it, but size descends as a hollow pinion, a hollow barrel if you will, is the minute hand. Then size descended again, but wider out again. Then that is, of course, the hour hand. The idea is that the tallest one is, of course, the second hand. So that's the one that rides on the most central drivetrain. Okay, I might have to do what I did last time and do this. Just because of my hand trimmer, to try and match up both hand trimmers. Now the second hand doesn't necessarily have to be at the 12 o'clock position. Where did that go? seconds hand. That's the only thing is they can really bounce. Really spring out if you let go of them. Finally. Alright, so I have a second hand on there. Alright, that stopped recording for some reason. Not sure why it stopped, but as you can see, I now have all the hands on there. And we have a beautiful, beautiful second hand sweep. So I've successfully got the hands on there. Looks like we don't have any collision of the hands. Let's just double check as that comes around the second hand. Oh, look at that beautiful clearance. Yes, look at that, fantastic. Let's make sure as the end comes back round, that kind of counterbalance, if you will. Yeah, that's fairly good. All right. Let's get that out to the third position. So we're going to try rolling the time, make sure it's at midnight when it jumps. Alright, this is the moment of truth. Oh no, it's not, because I recently moved the time and I started at midnight, so it's not the moment of truth. Come around to 12 again would be... Yes, fantastic. Alright, so that works. That's wonderful. Alright, so... And now I'm going to leave that in the third position because these things do not like it. these ETA 2824-2s do not like it if you try and move the clutch when it's in any other position, so that should be depressed enough now to move. Nope. What am I doing wrong here? All right. There we go. All right, let's try a different tool then. Oh, there we go, got it. Right. So you want that left in the third position for a few reasons. One is so that the hands kind of stay as they are. The other is so that it can, it doesn't hurt the mechanism at the balance arm as I put that back in. So the movement is now in there. I'm going to rotate that a bit. I then have a movement holder. Which is supposed to be sized to a ETA, but it doesn't seem to want to go in there. Anyway, let's get this rotated round, just nice and gently. Oh, look at that, beautiful. Granddad would be proud. I'm sorry, I'm moving things around a lot here. I've just got an eye up where that is. Looks fairly accurate. Alright, so the other reason I took the rotor off here was so that I can get the rotor back in now, after the movement holder is in there. There. Thought I had that lined up pretty good. And of course they have to be really small screws for the tolerances. Oh Damn. Shit. That's, of course, had to fall right into the mainspring. And I can hear it in there. That's not good. Right, so finally, disaster averted. I have the screw that had fallen into the flywheel removed. So, I'm actually going to get the rotor back on properly now. If I can find the right screw, which is right here. So the trick, I guess, is not to have the same tremor that I have in my hand here. And also to have the flywheel covered. So I'm going to need loops for this, it looks like. Alright, should be able to screw the rest of my hand. There we go. So that's now sitting in line with the movement holder. Looks like it's in line there. Alright, so I'm going to pause here, I'm going to change the crown and stem. Alright, so we are in the final furlongs, if you will, of this watch repair, watch restoration. Not sure how well that shows up on camera. Try and get that nice and low, the original gold stem that came with this. The crown and stem of the movement itself. I'm just going to get some pliers to hold that still and rotate the crown off. You want to hold it right near where the crown is anyway, so that you don't damage it. There we go, that looks like that's coming off. Everyone talks about Loctite. The thing is, you won't be able to see it here, I don't think, but it actually has a knurled end anyway, so you don't really need Loctite. Loctite is more for when you've had to correct a stem. And so that knurled end will just bite in. I'm going to do that until I feel that it won't turn anymore. There we go. So, this is the moment of truth. so it looks like that's taken. We won't know for sure until I get the case back on here. Which way did I leave that? Over here. So I might, actually having made all that protestations about not having to check. So after much fumbling around, as you can see, I do now have a fully functional watch that has been fully reassembled. It's completely different to how my granddad had it, but it's restored and looking wonderful. I guess I should talk about why it needed restoration. I didn't really touch upon that. I found that the quartz Miota 2115 movement that was in here originally, my grandmother told me when she handed it to me and told me that Granddad would have wanted me to have it, seems as I love watches so much, she had specified that it wasn't working. So I found out that it was a quartz and thought, well, surely it's just a battery that needs changing. Turns out that's not the case. It was actually, as I went to set the time of a new battery in, I noticed that in the setting position, having the crown pulled out and the stem pulled out to the time setting gear, that what was happening is the second hand was swaying to and fro as I was trying to set the minute and hour hand, which tells you that the drivetrains, the teeth on the drivetrains for the 3 different pinions have worn down. At that point, like I said earlier, I could have chosen to change out and get a nice cheap Miota 2115, but I decided that I should give this the love and care that I would have wanted to see for my granddad. So as a result, I have this now in here, a 2824 ETA in a form of quartz movement. Is it ideal? I need to make some adjustments. As you can see, despite my protestations about the stem length being perfect, I do actually have to pare that down a little bit, probably by about a millimetre. Like, it's not very much at all. Other than that, I think that's looking beautiful. It looks like a lovely dress watch, completely different to the original watch, but I think just as beautiful and picturesque. So there you go, a guy with no skill in watchmaking doing a full refurbishment. So that's what I have for you today. I hope that was enjoyable. And here is the finished watch on my wrist. As you can see, I did in the end manage to shorten the stem, which makes the crown sit flush to the case. As well as that, what you may have noticed if you are a watch nerd like me is that I actually failed to, in the moment, screw in the mounting screws to secure the plastic movement spacer ring to the back of the movement and secure it in place level with the movement. Luckily I hadn't worn it straight away. I was in kind of a rush to finish up actually because we were getting close to supper time there, so I wanted to put all my tools away. But in the time since, I have actually screwed in those mounting screws, so the watch is now 100% finished, as you can see, and I think it looks pretty great. There we go.